What celebrity death is shrouded in the most mystery? Princess Diana. Some say the Queen was involved. Hold on, BRB, someone at the door. Louie La Prince disappeared from a train on his way back to Paris. His body, nor his suitcase, were ever found. His suitcase is thought to have contained plans for the first movie camera, which he was weeks away from exhibiting. Many believe that his death was linked to Thomas Edison, who later tried to monopolize the industry with a gangster-like hold that almost killed cinema. Jimmy Hoffa. I mean, it's not hard to see why someone would want to kill him, but who did it and how? I could not be more excited for the Scorsese movie coming out later this year. The Irishman, it was probably the baseball stadium they built on top of him. Rudolf Diesel, inventor of the diesel engine. On the evening of the 29th of September 1913, Diesel boarded the Gersteamer SS Dresden in Antwerp on his way to a meeting of the Consolidated Diesel Manufacturing Company in London, England. He took dinner on board the ship and then retired to his cabin at about 10 p.m., leaving word to be called the next morning at 6:15 a.m., but he was never seen alive again. In the morning his cabin was empty and his bed had not been slept in, although his nightshirt was neatly laid out and his watch had been left where it could be seen from the bed. His hat and neatly folded overcoat were discovered beneath the afterdeck railing. Marilyn Monroe. Legend has it that in the late 80s Warner Brothers hired David Lynch and Mark Frost to develop a film based on the last few days of Marilyn Monroe, but the project was dropped because the two were convinced that the government murdered her. The two bonded over this belief and later developed Twin Peaks together. Cocaine is a hell of a drug. Heath Ledger's death was pretty strange. I remember when it first happened that there was a lot of backpedaling and changing of what actually happened. Some were saying suicide, others accidental overdose, and finally I think the last and official story was that he was prescribed medications by different physicians that happened to have death as a side effect when mixed. There were many rumors afoot about Mary-Kate Olsen's possible involvement with Ledger the night before he died, and that her security team cleaned up the apartment to spare the family some additional grief after his death. Tons of articles corroborate that, at best, she was hooking up with him for months before he passed. At worst, she might have supplied him with the drugs that killed him. Vincent Van Gogh. Yeah, it's super easy to just assume he committed suicide considering he's threatened it before, and the fact that he was certifiably insane and he had a predilection for getting drunk off lamp kerosene and eating paint, which his doctors assumed was a suicide attempt. However, he was shot in the stomach. 99% of gun suicides are aimed at the temple or through the mouth, at an angle that would have been hard for him to do himself, and it wasn't at point-blank range. He had never used a gun before, never had a use for a gun, and would not know how to work one, let alone the older model that was the suspected weapon. Even when he did threaten suicide previously, he always mentioned drowning as his preferred method. One story of why he borrowed the gun was so he could shoot at the crows in the field. He liked painting, but he loved birds and found crows to be especially interesting and would never shoot at them or find them to be a nuisance. They never found any of his painting supplies where he supposedly tried to kill himself. In fact, they never found his supplies anywhere. If he did shoot himself in the field, when he realized he didn't die, he would have had to walk back to his hotel along a busy street where someone would have seen the poor dude bleeding from the torso. When he did make it back to his hotel room, someone asked him what had happened and he said something along the lines of, "I guess I've wounded myself." But who would have shot him, you ask? René Secretan. René was a 16-year-old boy, who by his own admission, bullied Vincent and was most likely the most current owner of the gun. He took the gun everywhere and said that it shot erratically due to it being older. He liked showing off the gun and shooting at things as he pleased. He claimed Vincent stole the gun from him and did the deed in the field. Let it be known that the Secretan family beat feet back home to Paris immediately after the shooting before too many questions were posed. Why didn't Vincent blame him if that was the case? Vincent welcomed death at that point. He had mentioned in a letter that if death came upon him he would welcome it and not fight it. He was worried about losing his relationship and financial support of his brother Theo now that Theo had a baby and a wife to support. He basically decided to be a martyr rather than indict a kid that probably didn't mean to shoot him even if said kid was mean to him. No one is gonna read this shit, but if you do, thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Read Van Gogh, The Life by Gregory White and Stephen Neff for more. Edgar Allan Poe died mysteriously at the age of 40. Went missing when traveling from Virginia to New York City, then was found in a bad state in a bar in Baltimore a week later, filthy, uncharacteristically wearing a really shabby mismatched outfit of someone else's clothes, which was weird as he was very particular about wearing very smart tailored clothes. He was apparently ranting and raving unintelligibly. His personal physician arrived shortly after he was found, and took him to a poorhouse hospital and had him locked in a barred room, and barred any visitors from seeing him. Poe died mysteriously a few days later, apparently yelling the name Reynold over and over, although his physician was the only person to see him in the days before his death, and his accounts of what happened kept changing, including the dates of Poe's discovery, death and last words. His death certificate also went missing. His arch-nemesis and biggest critic, named Rufus Griswold, somehow managed to become executor of Poe's estate and money. Griswold basically made it his primary aim in life to destroy Poe's reputation, and wrote a memoir about him funded by Poe's money, and described him as a depraved, arrogant drug-addled madman. It's been suggested Poe was the victim of an election fraud racket, called cooping, where people would be shanghaied or kidnapped and drugged, forced to wear disguises and vote for a specific presidential candidate. There was an election the day before his reappearance, but Poe was a famous local celebrity at the time of his death, so it has been suggested he would have been too well known in the area for a cooping to take place. Poe was slandered by the temperance movement at the time, who claimed that Poe died of alcohol consumption, but his physician said he had smelled no alcohol on him or his clothes, and remained in a delirious raving state for days. Others suggested he had overdosed on opium, but numerous close friends revealed Poe was not a habitual drug user and hadn't used opium for years. Not really a celebrity per se, but that British spy who committed suicide and was found dead, zipped up inside of a duffel bag that was locked from the outside. Or that journalist exposing the CIA trafficking crack cocaine into the US and creating the drug epidemic they claimed to be fighting, whose death was ruled a suicide but he had been shot in the head twice. Natalie Wood. Agreed. I think Christopher Walken and her husband at the time, Robert Wagner, who were with her on the night she died, have some explaining to do. Nobody can seem to get their story straight, and there seems to be a lot of smoke. Shelly Miscavige. I know we don't actually know if she's dead, but I really feel they've done something awful to her. Robert Johnson. Did he really make a deal with the devil at a crossroads for all that blues talent? He died at 27, possibly making him one of the founding members of Forever 27. Unless of course, he's just one of the first modern examples. Spooky. John Bennett Ramsey. When I can't sleep I have a habit of obsessively reading about her case, as if I in all my mediocrity am the one who will finally solve her murder. Honestly though, I dearly hope it's solved one day. I'm dying to know. I was always curious about the guitarist from Manic Street Preachers, Richey Edwards. He disappeared in 1995 and has never been found. It was speculated he committed suicide in a way where the body would never be found, but I like to think he's out there somewhere. I've heard speculation he jumped from the Severn Bridge, but this is just rumor. Yes, this is an interesting one. His car was found abandoned at the bridge, but I think that's all they know about it. Hasn't been seen since. King Ludwig II of Bavaria. Shortly after he was deposed, His body and the body of his psychiatrist were found in shallow water with their head and shoulders exposed in a lake Starnberg near the castle where he was residing at the time. The two had gone for a walk and disappeared. Ludwig was known to be fairly athletic and a strong swimmer. There was no water in their lungs. The doctor's body showed signs of trauma to the head and strangulation on the neck. Ludwig's watch had been broken and stopped about a half hour after he was last seen. Ludwig's death was ruled a suicide, although there wasn't really a theory as to how he did it and no indication he was suicidal.
Thanks for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe.